Welcome to R&R Living Life. This episode begins with Rick and I leaving Cobbold Gorge and making our way back to Georgetown, Forsyth Road, which we really enjoyed driving along. Back in Georgetown, we continued on the Gulf Development Road or Savannah Way for approximately 100 kilometres, where we stopped in Mount Surprise to see what we could remember of the town, before continuing on for roughly 45 kilometres to the turnoff to Undara Volcanic National Park. Our camp for the night is at the Discovery Resort, where Rick and I were looking forward to exploring another unique geological creation. We were heading into the early morning sun that cast a glow across the landscape. For a short section of our journey we were following in a cloud of dust, but were left far behind in a short space of time. Rick was alert for cattle that were out feeding along the edge of the road, especially those that were on the wrong side of the fence, and as usual was enjoying the drive along this well-maintained gravel road, even with the few corrugations, and we kept a lookout at call points along the road that were an added safety measure. Heading east gave us another perspective of the country, as we were able to see along several small, generally shallow creek crossings, catching sight of small flats beside creeks, and then topping a rise, a scenic view of the Newcastle Ranges that mark the edge of the Savannah country. We passed rocky sandstone ridges and rolling hills covered in Savannah woodland, through rich beef cattle country. We passed an all-poly supplement feeder designed to protect lick supplements from wet weather conditions and never rust. In North Queensland, supplementary feeding for cattle is crucial for managing dry season protein and phosphorus deficiencies. Key feeding methods include phosphorus-based dry licks, molasses urea mixes, and the use of specialised feeders to minimise waste. I had heard about them but had not seen them. They certainly are more substantial than the lick drums we used years ago and well protected from the weather. As lick and water, specifically those containing urea commonly used in North Queensland, when they get wet they pose a significant risk of urea toxicity or poisoning to livestock. At the turn-off to the Forsyth Georgetown Road, we passed a road train parked up while the driver was checking his load of cattle. There are a number of companies that work in the pastoral industry. The logistics of cattle transport have come a long way from the dusty outback cattle droving trails of the olden days. Gone are the days of stampedes, dry billabongs, and epic drives across unforgiving terrains. Road trains play a crucial role in the cattle industry by providing a reliable and efficient means of transporting livestock across vast distances, with the movement of cattle from the producer to various destinations, including station to station, carting cattle south to finishing properties and feedlots, quarantine yards, ports and sale complexes. Their use allows for the transport of large numbers of cattle in a safe and, I could say, comfortable way. Once back on the Forsyth Georgetown Road, it was smooth sailing. We came to a section of road with a grader and water truck working on a gravel section, a huge effort to keep the road in good condition. We passed another loaded road train at the turn-off with its driver checking its load. We were in our element, cattle country, that operates in this challenging semi-arid environment. In retrospect, gold mining certainly has played a part in the development of the region, and discovering the history and geology of this area has been fascinating. There is just something about being in these remoter parts of Queensland that soothes the soul. The return journey into Georgetown didn't seem to take all that long. I was a little sad to be leaving the Georgetown region, as it was full of wonderful memories, not just newly made ones, but also from our younger days. Situated centrally at the bottom of the Gulf between Cairns and Normanton, it really is a great place not only for a quick visit, but to stay a while and soak up the tranquility. It really is good for the soul. What an experience the past couple of days have been, topped off by a cruise up Cobbold Gorge. Once back on the Gulf Development Road, we made our way over the Etheridge River and continued heading east. To say the least, there are some interesting sections of road, considering this is a major connection between Cairns and Normanton, meant to be fully sealed, but like a lot of roads we have been on, in need of repair. There were some sections of narrow single-lane bitumen with gravel shoulders, and some just gravel. Projects to upgrade over the past few years unfortunately haven't amounted to much of the road being upgraded. The road switched between full bitumen to narrow and then gravel and then back again. We crossed Roath Creek, still with damaged guardrails, and then Macmillan Creek. Roughly 50 kilometres east of Georgetown, we crossed the Ironsley River, built to flood-proof the Gulf country. But I wonder how many times the bridge has been flooded since it was opened in 2011. As a matter of interest, I did a quick search while making this episode to check on the condition of the bridge and found that, as of March 10th, 2026, the Ironsley River Bridge is reported as closed to all vehicles due to flood damage and required repairs. Recent reports indicate significant damage requiring concrete work, with expectations that it may only open to cars, not trucks, when repairs are finished. The Ironsley River, a seasonal river that can discharge varying amounts of water depending on the intensity of the monsoon or wet season, when combined with the Gilbert River, is said to be the largest river system in northern Australia. The Ironsley is joined by 33 tributaries from its source near Lyndhurst to its mouth, including the Copperfield and Etheridge rivers, and numerous creeks before reaching its confluence with the Gilbert River north of Croydon. The Ironsley River has a catchment area of over 24,000 square kilometres. During the dry season, there are a number of waterholes along its length. The Etheridge Shire includes the towns of Georgetown, Ironsley, Forsyth and Mount Surprise, supporting large-scale pastoral stations, predominantly grazing and breeding operations, running mainly Brahman cattle and Brahman cross cattle, due to the tropical monsoonal climate and the presence of cattle ticks. Crossbreeding using other breeds including Brangas, Charolais and Dart Masters are being introduced to improve carcass quality and growth rates. Cattle are run on native pastures of black speargrass and kangaroo grass with supplements to improve productivity. The Etheridge Shire also had many mines in the late 1800s. This gave rise to a number of communities that no longer exist today. Mount Surprise is a railway town on the old Cairns to Forsyth railway line and is the first Gulf Savannah town encountered by visitors approaching from the east. Ezra Firth took up Mount Surprise sheep run in 1861. Firth converted to cattle after selling his sheep profitably on the new Palmer River goldfields in 1873. When the Etheridge Railway was built from Almaden to Forsyth in 1910, the Queensland Government resumed a section of the property for Mount Surprise Township. In the same year, the Junction Creek Telegraph Office, built in 1871, was moved to the town. Mount Surprise developed as an important cattle trucking and telegraph centre for the western section of the tablelands. The town's importance was reduced as the railway traffic from the mining and cattle industries declined in the 1930s. Reconditioning the railway in 1951 and the construction of the Gulf Development Road in the 1960s revitalised Mount Surprise as a livestock trucking centre and more recently a tourist stop. Mount Surprise Hotel was one of two erected opposite the railway station in around 1910 when Mount Surprise was established as a cattle trucking siding on the new Etheridge Railway. After spending some time checking out Mount Surprise, we continued east. I was intrigued by the number of boulders in the paddocks alongside the road. The terrain consists of savanna grasslands and open woodlands interspersed with granite and basalt, the area being known as basalt country. an area that lies within the McBride Basalt Province, a significant geological feature in North Queensland. The basalt soils were timbered with box, ironbark, bloodwood, cockyaapple and whitewood, with dominant native grasses of black speargrass, plum sorghum and giant speargrass. Historically, the area was originally used for sheep grazing in the 1860s before transitioning to cattle in 1879 to supply the Palmer River goldfield. Just short of 40 kilometres from Mount Surprise was the turnoff to Undara. An old mailbox at the grid signified the turnoff, even though it was well signposted. We passed through Whitewater Station, situated along the access road to the lava tubes, with flat to undulating basalt country interspersed with small basalt ridges and waterholes. It was an interesting drive into Undara. We set up Gidget in the Discovery Caravan Park, set in natural bushland on the edge of Undara Volcanic National Park. Later that afternoon we were lucky enough to discover a pair of tawny frogmouths, not to be mistaken for owls, in a nearby tree. The following morning we were treated to a female kangaroo and her joey grazing beside our van. After breakfast we made our way over to the reception area, where our tour was to start and where we were to meet our guide. Rick and I were looking forward to seeing the lava tubes, a place where nature's story is etched into stone, with a vast underground network of lava tubes and tunnels winding their way through and under the savanna grasslands. The Undara lava tube system, situated on the McBride Volcanic Province, holds evidence of volcanic activity from 164 craters. After a short ride on the bus, we arrived at the first of the 3 tubes we were to explore. Due to the caves being flooded earlier in the year, we were restricted in just how far we could venture into some of them, while others were still closed, and our tour had been adapted to take this into account. The first tube we were to see involved a gravel path and then a boardwalk and stairs that led down into the Collins Road lava tube. After the initial short flight of stairs, we followed a boardwalk further into the cave, where it became darker the further we walked. I was thankful for the handrail giving me something to hang on to. We required lights to see where we were going, thanks to phone lights, while the guide pointed out points of interest. Once the lights were turned off, it was pitch black, an eerie feeling when you are 200 metres inside a cave. Where water had seeped through the roof and walls, it had made some interesting and breathtaking colorations. This massive 190,000-year-old volcanic flow is home to some rare cave corals and unique fragile ecosystems. In this first cave we got to see our first sight of one of Earth's most jaw-dropping geological and fragile underground ecosystems. So incredible, yet hidden from plain sight unless you knew where it was. The Undara volcano released enough lava to fill Sydney Harbour 3 times over. Huge tubes formed when rivers of lava confined to a valley crusted over and formed a roof. Insulated in its casing of solidified lava, the lava flow carried on for tens of kilometres before draining out, leaving an empty tube of lava. The tubes acted as conduits, distributing lava over 100 kilometres from the crater, the longest flow in the world from a single volcano. Weaker sections of the roof of the tubes later collapsed to form caves and depressions, with more than 70 caves found in the park. From Collins Road lava tube we climbed back on the bus that took us through Savannah woodlands to our next lava tube, where we got to see the archway. Unless you were looking for it, you would never have guessed that it was there, as it was surrounded by Savannah woodland, and the only signs that there was something different about it was the dry rainforest-type vegetation at the mouth of the cave. Once off the bus, we walked approximately 600 metres before traversing down a flight of stairs and then along a boardwalk through a hollowed forest fringe hollow lava tube to the entrance of the impressive site. The entrance of the archway enclosed by the collapsed moist dry rainforest ecosystem. The hollow lava tube that formed this remarkable archway structure, measuring roughly a massive 18 metres high and 24 metres wide, said to be the tour's highlight, with spectacular cavernous rock walls with distinct mineral colours, collapsed roof sections, and at times a tangle of tree roots. It really was incredible. A jumble of fallen boulders, mesmerising mineral-stained walls, and surrounding vine thickets. The mosquitoes, however, were having a field day, especially with one adventurer who unfortunately was allergic to mosquito bites and had to return to the bus. The place was magical. Once we had explored the archway complex, we followed the boardwalk back to the Stevenson Cave. This narrow, roughly 300-metre long section of cave often features bat colonies, but we only saw a couple, along with some rare cave corals. I stood at the top of the cave entrance and looked down into the water below, while others, Rick included, took the steps to the water's edge. Inside the cave was incredible. Once we had our fill of the cave, we made our way back to the bus via another path that led us out the opposite side of the tube and around the top of the cave, where we had a closer view of the dry rainforest vegetation. It was hard imagining what we had just seen below the surface, and had we not seen it, one would definitely not realise what lay beneath. The lava tubes were breathtaking. In all three systems we visited there was water. Rick dipped more than his toe in and went up to his knees, only to find out that the water was very cold. The tubes left an impression that will last forever. They really are a place like no other. Once back at the resort, we spent some time checking out the carriages around the bar area. Later that afternoon, we enjoyed the company of the tawny frogmouths while making ready to move on, for tomorrow was a travelling day. Exploring nature's treasures in this unique part of Queensland has been unbelievable. The Undara lava tubes in Cobbold Gorge sure does capture the imagination and has left an enjoyable experience that will last a lifetime. It is not every day you can walk in the path of an ancient volcano or tour a gorge created by a series of geological processes. Join us next episode as we make our way further east along the Gulf Development Road and the Kennedy Highway to Mareeba. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this segment. Cheers for now. Live life to the full. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.